Georgie. So I was cleaning out my emails. Any of you have issues with cleaning out your email?
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
Maryum?
Oh my gosh, it just, yeah, prosperity at its best, right? Well, when I was, prior to being a minister, I used to be well, I still am actually a fitness trainer, but I would promote these workshops that I did. And I was in a leads group in Pasadena, and this guy was in my leads group, and so he writes a blog every single week. His name is, oops, it's not on. His name is Raul. Yeah. Is it, huh? That's on, okay. Okay, so this is called The New Cat Toy. And I read this and I thought, oh my gosh, this is great for Sunday. Okay, calling in sick to work makes me uncomfortable, no matter how legitimate my excuse. I always get the feeling that my boss thinks I'm lying. On one recent occasion, I had a valid reason but lied anyway, because the truth was just too damned humiliating. I simply mentioned that I sustained a head injury and hoped I would feel up to coming in by the next day. By then I reasoned I could think of a doozy to explain the bandage on top of my head. The accident occurred mainly because I had given in to my wife's wishes to adopt a cute little kitty. Initially, the new acquisition was no problem. Then one morning, I was taking my shower after breakfast when I heard my wife, Deb, call out to me from the kitchen. Honey, the garbage disposal is dead again. Please come reset it. You know where the button is, I said, as I protested in the shower pitter-patter and steam. Reset it yourself. But I'm scared. What if it starts going and sucks me in? There was a meaningful pause and then, come on, it'll only take you a second, honey. So I came out dripping wet and butt naked, hoping that my silent, outraged nudity would make a statement about how I perceived her behavior as extremely cowardly. Sighing loudly, I squatted down and stuck my head under the sink to find the button. And the last action I remember performing. It struck without warning, without any respect to my circumstances. No, it wasn't the hexed disposal drawing me into its gnashing metal teeth. It was our new kitty, who discovered the fascinating dangling objects she spied hanging between my legs. She had been posed around the corner and stalked me as I reached under the sink. At the precise moment when I was most vulnerable, she leapt at the toys I unwittingly offered and snagged them with her needle-like claws. Oh, I know, the guys are going, "Urgh." I lost rational thought of control, orderly bodily functions, blindly rising at a violent rate of speed with the full weight of a kitten hanging from my masculine region.
Wow.
Wild animals are sometimes faced with a fight-or-flight syndrome. Men in this predicament choose only the flight option. I know this from experience. I was fleeing straight up into the air when the sink and cabinet bluntly and forcefully impeded my ascent. The impact knocked me out cold. When I awoke, my wife and the paramedic stood over me. Now, there are not many things in this life worse than finding yourself lying on the floor, buff naked, in front of a group of been there, done that paramedics. Even worse, having been fully briefed by my wife, the paramedics were all snorting loudly as they tried to conduct their work, all the while trying to suppress their hysterical laughter and not succeeding. Somehow I lived through it all. A few days later, I finally made it back to the office where colleagues tried to coax an explanation out of me about my head injury. I kept silent, claiming it was too painful to talk about, which it was. What's the matter, they asked me. Cat got your tongue? If they only knew. I know, isn't that adorable? I mean, I don't even want to be him. But yeah, just the way he wrote it I thought was fantastic. Well, I know, cute, right? Well, we were supposed to have another guest speaker today, so I'm going to wing it, okay? As I am apt to do. What can I say? So we are talking about empowerment, and I still have a little bit of a cold, so excuse me if I have to drink water. So what I'm going to talk about is a couple of things. So while I'm sitting on the couch mending, I watched a couple of plays, and they actually were about empowerment. How many of you know the story of Gypsy? Have any of you seen the play Gypsy?
Yes.
You haven't? Oh my gosh, really? Gypsy Rose Lee? Oh, it's a classic. Anyway, in the movie, Natalie Wood plays Gypsy Rose Lee. But what it's about, and actually this one was really brutal because I was reading the backstory on her. And it was all about, she was an incredible stage mother. You know what a stage mother is, right?
Yeah.
So a stage mother is that they are always pushing their children forward into the limelight, and they want them to succeed because ultimately they want to be empowered. They wish that they were on stage. They wish that they were the ones in the limelight and they were the stars. And that's pretty much what this story was about. But finally at the end, you know, she's pushing and shoving these kids into show business, and this was during vaudeville. And at that time period, you know, they would do these really cheesy acts, but at that time, you know, that was what people really liked. And what happened is that she had two daughters, and the one daughter, she kept pushing her, and finally she left. She got married when she was like 18 and left her mother. So then the mother sings a song to Louise and says, I had a dream about you, baby. You know that song? Okay, so that's from Gypsy. And she goes, okay, I've lost one of them. I still have this one to sink my hooks into. And it was really quite amazing, you know, and Louise just kind of went along with this whole thing. But what happened at the end is that they were ending up, at the end of vaudeville, it was closing down. It was time of talking movies and silent movies and blah, blah, blah. And so, you know, all the things in vaudeville weren't really happening anymore. And what happened is that they ended up in a burlesque show. You all know what that is, right? Okay, so it's like there's one scene in the play and the movie where you've got to have a gimmick, and these three strippers, one has lights as she flashes here, and the other one, you know, she's got, she has a trumpet that she plays, and then another one, I can't remember what she did, but oh yeah, she does a butterfly thing, you know, and then bumps and grinds. So anyway, and they're just about done with their gig at this place because they were the clean act, keep the police out of the theater. And what ended up happening is they lost their head stripper, the star Spot. So Rose, the mother, says, Louise can do it. I know she can do it. And she actually pushed her out onto stage, and that started Gypsy Rose Lee's stripping career. And how it started is that she finally realized for the first time, because her mother never empowered her, her mother never said nice things to her, that she was beautiful. And then from that point on, she empowered herself, because she realized, you know, she did a whole stripping thing, but it was more of a sophisticated stripping thing, and she became the top paid stripper in the world, okay, and was over in France, and she was learning French, and you know, it was just an incredible story because it's true. And then she ended up, I remember this, and I remember as a little kid watching her on TV going, ooh, that lady, she gets naked. You know, and when you're a little kid, that's like so, oh my gosh, right? And she had a TV show, she was in several movies, and she just really stood up to her mother, who was horrible. And I was reading a biography on her mom, and her mom had such a horrible temper that she actually killed somebody, you know, but they never put her away because it was deemed accidental death. She pushed something out of a window. I'm going, wow, this is amazing. But through all of that, this crazy stage mother, she was able to take whatever she learned and empower herself and work with that. And I thought that was beautiful. The other one that I watched, and I heard about it, my friend Lori, who's in this, I was telling the girls that she's in this little video that Reverend Cliff Rubin does these little videos at Spirit Works. And they're kind of silly, but it was cute. So here's Lori walking along, and this is my friend Lori, she's in her 80s. Lori's walking along, and a guy's running up. Move out of my way, old lady, and Lori's just walking along. And the guy keeps yelling at her, yelling in her ear, and Lori's just walking along. then finally, you hear the guy go, "Oh, ow, I got a cramp." And Lori just smiles. It's very cute, very well done. But it's interesting because, I'm bringing that up because she has been an amazing friend, and she has been so empowered her whole life. She had a husband, James, and he was also a practitioner over at Spirit Works. And she's an artist, and she continues to just do her thing and to continue to be powerful and strong in her life in her 80s. And she's, for me, she's a model for what I want to be like when I get to be in my 80s, which isn't that far away. That's fast, right? I know, isn't that crazy? The other show I watched, and it's just more about us, and I'm going to tag on a lot what Roxy said. I remember when I was going to University of Phoenix, when you go to the Holmes Institute, which is the ministerial program for our organization, you either have to write an essay in order to get in, or, which I could have done, it would have been the easier route, but I didn't. And I chose instead to go to the University of Phoenix. And the University of Phoenix is it was on campus in Pasadena, and I had to get my undergraduate in order to get my master's degree from ministerial school. So I had to go through that before I could even step into the ministerial program, which was another, 2.5 years. So what happened, and I remember Roxy, you saying this, I had to take a class. How many of you like mathematics? I know. You do? Good for you, people. Anyway, I had to take a statistics class. And at University of Phoenix, they made you take 6 weeks in a row. You had to do a group project, an individual paper, and a group paper, okay? And a group presentation. So in 6 weeks, we were slamming them in all the time, and finally I go, okay, I can't do this anymore. Kind of like what Roxy said. Statistics? I can't even pass algebra. Okay, so I went through algebra, and I don't know, I hired a tutor. I am not kidding you. So I empowered myself. I hired a tutor from the junior high school up the street. Yeah. And I know, that's how you empower yourself, okay? Because otherwise I would never pass that class in 6 weeks. They were having you do algebra 1 and 2 in 6 weeks. And they did that same darn thing with the statistics class. And the math tutor looks at me, he goes, how can you do that? And I go, I don't know, but you're gonna help me, brother. So anyway, we did, and what happened is that I ended up embodying it for 2 minutes, okay? Because I had to do the presentation, and I remember the professor, oh, and by the way, the professor of the statistics class, he was an ex-minister that hated God. I'm like, ooh, and I'm getting ready to go into ministerial school. Are you kidding me, man? So it was amazing. Wow. But he was such a tough cookie. He was mad at the world, hated everybody. He was just really, really a hard-nosed guy. But I thought, if I could just talk his talk for, the 20 minutes during my presentation, I got this wired. And so I said, I think I can catch this in my brain for a few seconds. Because if you're not a mathematician, you cannot catch this, okay? So I did. And the professor stays after my presentation, he looks at me and he goes, wow, you really got this, don't you? And I thought, fake it till you make it, baby. And then I immediately forgot it. I don't think I can ever tell you any more about it now. But it's how we just move forward and empower ourselves, and no matter what, we keep going. There was another class from my friend Margaret. Margaret, I can't do this anymore. It's just too much. I can't do it. I'm just going to drop out. She goes, Maryum, you know you're not going to drop out. She goes, hey, no, you need to keep going. And I go, but Miss Margaret, it's so hard. And she goes, no, Maryum, I believe in you, like what you said, Barbara. I believe in you. I know you can make this. I sound like Pastor Joel Osteen right now. And I know that you got God's blessings on your back. You just keep going, girlfriend. So I did, and thank God, I finally made it. It was amazing. So the one blessing at our graduation, I don't remember where we graduated, but Shaq was there. And the basketball player, you remember Shaq? Okay, so what's his name, his full name? Shaquille O'Neal. Okay, so we're all going, we're gonna graduate with Shaquille O'Neal. Yeah, baby. So that was like, I'll never forget that day because he's a lifelong learner and he wants to continue to empower himself, because that's how he moves forward in his life. And he created a program where they give away toys at Christmas time. So he does a lot of these different things for people. So you tell I've been actually watching a lot of TV, but one of the cool ones I watched was during the Hurricane Katrina. You know how many people got displaced in New Orleans? And I didn't know this. They called this Angel Lane. Do you guys know about Angel Lane? I had no idea. So, right? Okay, so what ended up happening, Oprah spearheaded this project in order to bring families into these group of homes that Habitat for Humanity built. And she created these homes with, what's that name of that designer she works with? And they created these beautiful homes for these people that had been displaced and lost everything during that storm. And if you don't know, it was so bad, and we saw the pictures, but you hear the personal stories about these individuals. And a lot of them, that it flooded their entire home, they've lost everything. And one woman, she had sent her daughter off to Texas, you know, during the storm. And she ended up staying there because her job said to her, if you don't come in, we're gonna fire you. You know, and she ended up almost drowning because the floods went through her home. She ended up swimming over to her friend's house, and they had to stand on the roof of that house until they were rescued. And she was lucky. But she was one of the recipients of this place called Angel Lane. Another one that had lost her home, and she had 2 boys, and she had a paid-off house. So she was one of the ones that got gifted one of these homes on Angel Lane. And what ended up happening, I don't know how Oprah did it, but she brought all this together. And I thought about, you know, her and all of the work that she does. And I thought, you know, people may say, oh, you know, Oprah, well, you know what? This woman has done an incredible amount of things for the world and for humanity, and it's amazing. So, you know, if we do one little speck like that, you know, it's incredible. But she's actually taken her vision and empowered herself in order to bring this new reality and awareness into the world and into our population, which I think is fantastic. So there's one other story that I want to share because you know, you see these different stories, and like, you know, Gypsy Rose Lee, that's a real story. That's a real woman that endured this crazy, wacky, manic mother. But there's another story, and it was called Billy Elliot. And it's a true story about during the time in England when a lot of the coal miners, or maybe it might have been England, I'm not sure, but they had, you know, they were in these different villages. It was England because it was Margaret Thatcher was the Prime Minister. And Billy Elliot was a story about this mining town, and it's fantastic. If you like dancing, anybody like tap dancing? I love tap dancing. Anyway, so it's about this little boy, and he's supposed to go take boxing lessons. So his dad gives him the 30 pence or whatever it is, and they go and they box, and then he realizes, I don't like boxing, I like to dance. And this is at a time when dancing, they called them, what did they call them? Light, or I don't know. They didn't call them gay, they called them something else. It'll come to me. Anyway, so Billy Elliot, by chance, you know, the next class is a dance class, and it's this woman teaching all the little girls in the village about dancing. And she's empowering them to have more grace, and they're gonna put on a show, and the little girls are like, oh, we're never gonna make it, Miss da-da-da. And she's like, don't you say that. You keep smiling, and you keep going, and we're gonna have a great show. But anyway, Billy ends up in the class. And then she says, well, come on, you've got some good moves. You know, why don't you join us? He goes, I don't know how to do that. She goes, just go for it. And he starts dancing. He becomes one of the best dancers in her little class. She sees the potential of this boy, and she says, you need to audition for the Royal Ballet Theater. Yeah. And here he is in a coal mining family. His mother has died, and the dad and the brother are muy macho, okay? Very, very macho. And, you know, they think they're lighting their loafers, you know, if they're gonna ballet dance. And what was great is that the woman who was his teacher, she never gave up. And she kept empowering him to, you know, go for it and to do it. And then one night, you know, the dad says, you're not gonna go, I can't believe that. That's gonna cost too much money. And one night, Billy Elliot is dancing in the empty hall after a Christmas party, and the father sees him. And he says, you know what? I've changed my mind. I'm gonna support you, I'm gonna empower you, I'm gonna back you up, because I see that you've got talent. And as Barbara said, you know, when you have somebody that supports you, especially a parent or a figure like that, it's so vital. And so he was able to do his audition, and the music kept goofing up, and he didn't do that great as far as that part, but the dance, he was dancing beautifully, even though the music wasn't great and in sync with his dance. So they asked him, they said, you know, why do you like to dance, and what's so great about it? It's probably how people feel about singing, right, Ije? Or it's that, he said, when I'm dancing, I'm in a whole nother world, and I get to be in another place and time, and I get to just be who I am and be my authentic self. So it's really quite beautiful. So through all that, his dad supported him, and then the whole neighborhood brought the money together in order for him to go to London, in order for him to audition, and in order for him to go and study. So it was really quite beautiful watching how the power of a community can support each other. So those things are what struck me, you know, as I was sitting here thinking about what's empowerment mean? And what does that do for us? And all the different things in our lives. So think back in your life about the people that empowered you, or the circumstances, or the things maybe now. Because right now, I don't know about you, but I'm at a place in my life where I'm saying, gosh, what's next? Do you ever feel like, what's next? And really inquire into that. Because, you know, spirit or your soul knows what's next for you. And if you ask that deep question within yourself, you're going to be able to have that be revealed to you. How's it going to show up? What does it show up for each of you? It may show up as a book falls off the shelf. It may show up as a movie you're watching. It may show up as an individual that comes into your life, or it may show up that you take a class. I remember taking a class called The Joy of Singing, and I gotta tell you, that shifted me so much, and George actually does a class like that here in Santa Barbara with the young people. But what happened, the man that ran it, he's gone now. He had had a stroke. But I was watching Cabaret, and the men that wrote the music to that, their name is Fred Ebb and John Kander. And they wrote the music for that. They wrote the music for Chicago, Liza with the Z. There's all these music. And what we got to do, and I'll never forget this, is that Fred Ebb, he was friends with the guy in the class that was teaching. And Fred Ebb came, and we each got to sing him one of his songs that he wrote. And he was just crying. It was beautiful. And I'll just never forget. So challenge, you know, we have to challenge ourselves. We have to do what we feel uncomfortable doing, because if you're guided to a class, if you're guided to a situation, if you're guided somewhere, that's spirit talking to you. It's like Roxy, you know, oh, I'm taking this class, and I'm like, my God, that's perfect. Well, I know it's perfect for her, but she has to realize it. Outside of us, other people see our potential, and they see that. So whenever, you know, you can ask somebody and say, gosh, what do you think I would be great at? And they'll tell you. Because most people are aware of who you are and what you do. And it's amazing. And they'll say, have you ever thought about doing this? I remember I was with George, this is years ago, and I thought, you know, I should probably really look at trying that again. We were doing recording. I was doing my prayers, and he was doing music in the background. We never finished that project. But George looked at me and he said, Reb Maryum, he goes, you need to do like voiceovers. Because you're a one hit, you can do it, and you do it in one take. And I thought, great. You know, that's something that I could think about doing in the future, you know, and trying, right? So for you, be present, and this week, go ahead and ask, what's your next step? What's next for me? God, you know, I just want to have the more in my life. Reverend Nirvana Gale used to say that, and he looked at me one time and I said, I don't know what we were talking about. He goes, Maryum, don't you want the more? Don't you want the more in your life? And I looked at him and I said, damn, brother, I do. I do. And from that point on, I'll never forget that. And whenever I feel like I can't do it or I can't make it, I'll say to myself, but don't you want the more? Don't you want to have this and expand yourself a little bit? Because otherwise we can sit there and not allow our gifts to shine, not be empowered. And the other thing is, empower other people. And that's one of my statements from when I took Landmark. And it's stuck with me my whole life. And my statement from Landmark is, I am the empowerment for all people. And I end up being a minister. Wah-ha! So it's perfect. So with that, take that, be present to it, because your soul's always speaking to you. Your soul's always wanting the more from you, because it knows your potential. It knows that you're this fabulous shining light out in the world. And that's really what it's all about, yes?
Yes.
Okay? So, love yourself, honor yourself, stretch, and go for it, my darlings, and have a fabulous, beautiful week, and allow the divine to whisper sweet nothings into your ear. Peace and blessings.